Mick Wallace. Minister, 2 years ago, Jonathan O'Brien called for a comprehensive review of this emergency legislation, which would focus on how to modernise the criminal justice system to make it responsive to the needs of Ireland in 2017. No review was ever conducted. We have seen so little serious reform of our criminal justice system in the lifetime of this government. Instead, the government has wasted its time with the Sexual Offences Act and Boxer's Bill. The retention of these special criminal courts means that we will continue to be selective in terms of how we recognise and apply human rights. We are into very dangerous territory when such selectivity is applied to rights that should be universal. Everyone should have a right to a trial by jury of their peers. Instead, in Ireland, we have a bizarre and deeply unjust situation where the DPP gets to decide on how courts will try certain offences, whether certain offences should be tried by a jury or not. These laws are counterproductive and have a radicalising effect. Gangland crime and terrorism derive from deep structural inequalities in society, and successive governments have absolutely failed to deal with these inequalities. In November last year, the UN Special Rapporteur on Counter-Terrorism, Dáil Éireann, said the Special Criminal Court is operating a permanent emergency, and people don't even know us anymore. The exceptional powers have become the norm. We're normalising what is at best a selective approach to recognition and application of human rights. The Special Criminal Court was initially established to deal with terrorism, but its jurisdiction has expanded to include serious crime. This exploitation of emergency power functions in the same manner as disaster capitalism, the so-called shock doctrine. The Special Rapporteur was particularly critical of this slippage or mission creep of the Special Criminal Court and compared it to the aftermath of 9/11, after which there was a proliferation of counter-terrorism norms and practices across the world, spawning de facto and permanent emergencies in national practice. She said the island of Ireland, more so than many parts of the world, has experienced emergency law, emergency practice and the seepage of the exceptional into the ordinary system in ways that have not served the rule of law nor the protection of human rights well. The Special Rapporteur said these emergency powers involve extensive and sustained human rights violations. She said she recognises terrorism may trigger the conditions of emergency, but said that those do not mean a state must use emergency powers to regulate terrorism, particularly when the ordinary law is sufficient and robust. I underscore my concerns, she said, that there has been an ongoing rush to counter-terrorism regulation without adequate consideration of the capacity of the ordinary law of many states to function effectively. During previous debates on this issue, the Minister invoked the threat of international terrorism as justification for continuing to have a no-jury court in Ireland. Yet the government refuses to allow continues to allow Shannon Airport to be used as a base from which to create untold destruction in other regions. If we put a stop to the use of Shannon Airport by the US military, the threat of international terrorism to which the Minister referred to would be far less significant. Why hasn't the government considered this if they're actually really concerned about terrorism? And I just want to pick up on a couple of points made by my good friend at the Justice Committee, Jim O'Callaghan. And Jim applauds the fact that the Muslims in Ireland are not radicalised. But we talk about terrorism, but we forget that state terrorism is the biggest form of terrorism on the planet today, by a mile. There's no comparison. The amount of people killed, communities destroyed by what the Americans do through their military operations is frightening. And we tolerate that. We tolerate American terrorism, and we're fine with that. And we introduce these draconian laws to deal with what's by far more petty in comparison. We should cop onto ourselves.